So finally, Israel and Iran have agreed to a ceasefire after 2 weeks of intense warfare announced by President Trump. Oil prices dropped, global markets rallied, and for now, the missiles rest. But pause, this is not a peace, it's a pause. And in pause, we see patterns because the conflict was never truly about Iran. Wars are not being fought for nations anymore, they are being fought for narratives, not to protect sovereignty, but to protect seats, egos, and alibis. Today's missiles are not defending borders, they are defending approval ratings, dodging jail terms, and rewriting legacies. My name is Rahul Goyal. Welcome to Peace and Power, where we don't just follow the war, we follow who benefits from it. From Netanyahu's courtroom escapes to Trump's bombing for peace campaigns, to Khamenei, Putin, and Pakistan's military Masiha Munir. This is not a global conflict, this is a global cover up. Let's begin with the man playing war to outrun a verdict, Benjamin Netanyahu. Chapter 1, Netanyahu, the Messiah of misfires. They say wars are fought for peace, for sovereignty, for the people. But look closely, more often than not, they are fought for one man's chair. Benjamin Netanyahu isn't just fighting Iran, he's fighting prison time and maybe history's judgment. After nearly 2 years of war in Gaza, Netanyahu found himself cornered, domestically unpopular, legally embattled, diplomatically isolated. Then came Iran. In mid June 2025, Netanyahu launched strikes on Iranian targets, claiming Iran had crossed a red line with its nuclear ambitions. Within days, over 100 Iranian sites were bombed, including bunkers, radars, research centers. Then came the big prize. On June 22nd, the United States officially joined the party, flying in B 2 bombers across oceans, dropping GBU 57 bunker busters on Iran's nuclear facilities at Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. It was the exact move Netanyahu had been begging for. And when the dust settled, Netanyahu stood tall, as if the Nobel Prize would now come gift wrapped with each crater in Tehran. But here's what most won't say: this war was not necessary, it was convenient. Because back home, Netanyahu is still standing trial for bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. Three separate cases, one desperate man. His judicial overhaul attempt triggered Israel's largest protests in 50 years. Military reservists rebelled, court pushed back, even Mossad officers raised alarms. His public trust was gone, and then boom, Iran. What better way to silence dissent, kill the headlines, and bring the nation back under one slogan: Bibi versus the bomb? This is not the first time Netanyahu has weaponized fear. He has been warning about Iran's nuclear bomb since 1990s. That's 3 decades, 4 American presidents, and zero mushroom clouds. He went to the United Nations with a cartoon bomb, he lectured Europe, he defied Obama, and now he's finally got what he always wanted: a full scale confrontation, not to protect Israel, but to preserve himself. Al Jazeera calls it a war that gave Netanyahu political breathing room. They are being polite. This is not breathing room, this is life support. Netanyahu could not win Gaza, he could not stop Hamas, he could not convince Israelis. So he hit Iran, and now he walks into war rooms instead of courtrooms, he addresses soldiers instead of judges, he dominates headlines instead of dockets. There are Israelis who are questioning this war, but their voices are lost in the smoke. Because bombs make noise, and in war, dissent feel like betrayal. So Netanyahu does what he does best: play victim, play savior, and play for time. And while missiles fly over Tehran, Netanyahu flies further away from accountability. And here comes our second character, the biggest peacemonger of the 21st century, Donald Trump. They say Trump wants the Nobel Peace Prize, a man who banned travel, ignited trade wars, and now bombs nation states. Who knew diplomacy felt like an airstrike? But this isn't about peace, it's about power. On June 22nd, the US launched strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities in concert with Israel's bunker busting campaign. B 2 stealth bombers dropped 14 massive ordnance penetrators and 30 tomahawks on Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Trump called the campaign very successful. The operation was immediately dubbed Midnight Hammer, and rocks of global oil prices followed. Just before that, Pakistan nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, citing his role in easing India Pakistan tensions in May. Trump himself wrote, I won't get a Nobel Prize no matter what I do, because every war hawk needs a trophy cabinet. Here is the thing, Trump authorized military strikes on Iran. He demands Iran's unconditional surrender, calls for regime change with slogans like Make Iran Great Again, a disturbingly familiar echo of his campaign rhetoric. Meanwhile, his team backtracks, saying they don't want regime change, even as Trump continues to threaten Supreme Leader Khamenei personally. But let's be clear, Trump's global war is not about justice or diplomacy, it's about distraction. Because back home the house is crumbling, his overall approval rating has plunged to 38%, with disapproval at 54% across immigration, economy, foreign policy, and more, the lowest for any president since modern polling began. On June 14th, an estimated 5 million Americans marched in No Kings protest across more than 2,100 cities, a nationwide rebellion against what critics call second term authoritarianism. His military parade idea sparked outrage. 60% of Americans opposed what they saw as militarizing the presidency. Courts have repeatedly overturned or paused his executive orders, from immigration crackdowns to state level troop deployments. In one standout case, federal courts blocked his use of military force against protesters in Los Angeles. So, what does Trump do? He shifts the narrative. He bombs Iran because if he is at the epicenter of foreign conflict, American eyes are not on the tattered approval numbers, the courtroom drama, the multi million protester movement, or the judges telling his orders to chill. And when Trump says, I stopped the world from going to war, what he really means is I am bombing Iran so no one bombs me, in polls, in court, in trust. This is not Trump's war for America, it's Trump's war for himself. And here comes the character number 3 of the story, Ayatollah Khamenei. They say Khamenei is the guardian of Iran's revolution, but today he is the survivor too, in a conflict scripted not just by Israel and the US, but by his own grip on power. June 22nd, the US escalates, sending B 2 bombers deep into Iranian territory. Iran responds with missiles to Israel and targets US bases, raising the risk of regional escalation. Basically, it's a May Day situation for the Supreme Leader. Key IRGC commanders loyal to Khamenei, Hossein Salami, Amir Ali Haji Zadeh, were killed during the June strikes. Inside Iran, chants of death to Khamenei echo from balconies, echoing 2009, a sign of protest against both the war and his broken regime. Iran's elite are pushing succession plans. Khamenei's son Mojtaba and cleric Hassan Khomeini are being floated, preparing for the day the supreme leader steps off the stage. Khamenei is not fighting Israel, he is fighting for his own survival. This is his crisis moment. He is 62 years into his leadership. His inner circle is leaking blood and power. His country is fracturing at the edges, and now his regime is on the front line. So he responds, deploys the IRGC's proxy networks, launches missile salvos at Israel and US assets, seeks Russia's backing, pledges vengeance, but keeps his faction alive, even as Iran braces for reprisal. This is not zeal, it's zombie protection, the old regime trying to stay undead. And what is Khamenei's calculation? Be the storm rather than be swept away by it. In a war, bombs can break a bunker, but only a tyrant can crack his own crown. Khamenei is not Iran's defender, he is its last line, and that makes the war a fight not for borders but for the soul of a regime. A few thousand miles from Iran, Putin is not just bombing Ukraine, he is preparing for history's spotlight and a post war legacy. He is openly rejecting peace unless Ukraine surrenders. He is funding the military at record levels, $172 billion, that is 7.7% of Russia's GDP. He is pushing Europe into more defense spending while pushing the idea that Ukraine and Russia are one people. This is not conquest, it's crowning. Truth is, he is not liberating anyone, he is trying to be remembered as the Tsar who never let go. And the last but not the least, General Asim Munir of Pakistan. Pakistan's army chief traded tanks for 5-star status, and a nationalist war narrative became his ticket to power. Elevated to Field Marshal in May 2025 for the India face off, May's military escalation helped him neutralize civilian government checks, created Pakistan's first public day of gratitude, glorifying military dominance. This is not national safety, it's institutional immortality. After orchestrating border skirmishes and internal clampdowns, Munir scored an exclusive lunch with Donald Trump at the White House. Soon, Pakistan officially recommended Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Yes, the irony. A warmongering general proposes a peace prize for a man who just bombed a sovereign nation. If this is not Kali Yuga, what is? In Hinduism, Kali Yuga is the era where morality stands on one leg, truth is ridiculed, and power worships chaos. And here we are, saluting the arsonist while mourning the fire. Nearly every global conflict is not about borders or ideology, but about power. Netanyahu fights legal cases with bombs. Trump bombs his way out of courtrooms. Khamenei bombs to avoid being bombed out of power. Putin bombs to be remembered as eternal. Munir bombs to find consent for his castle. So, the conclusion, for them, thrones come first. And you, the people, they never fight your wars and they will never fight your wars because you and me do not need war. They do for their own survival. They say they fight for us, but they fight for themselves. And here's the bitter truth, as long as thrones are shaky, the world stays on the brink. Yes, bombs have stopped for now, but until leaders quit wielding war as a political lifeline, this ceasefire is just another scene change in a global theater directed by thrones, not by truth. If you like the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You were watching Peace and Power. My name is Rahul Goyal. Goodbye.